Hey, what's going on? It's Darryl Syms, and today I'm going to be helping you to memorize all the notes on your guitar. I've already seen some other people talk about this, but I find that a lot of people are misleading because they say that you can do it within a day. I'm going to be super realistic with you today. That's not possible. You are not going to memorize all of the notes on your guitar within a day. You'll be able to sort of work them out after a while, of course, but that's not memorizing. Memorizing is being able to recall the notes as quickly as possible. Now, with the methods that I'm going to share with you today, you should be able to memorize every note on the guitar within a month if you're putting in the practice every day. All you need is 5 to 10 minutes on this every day of just running through what I'm going to share with you, and then you'll never have to do it again. Once you learn this, you've learned it for life. So the first thing that I want you to be aware of is how to play a major scale along the neck. Let me get my guitar. So you need to confidently be able to do this shape. And ideally you want to know the C major scale across the entire neck. That'll give you a good foundation and a decent amount of fretboard awareness that will help you memorizing the notes across the guitar. Although this isn't entirely necessary, but it is strongly advised. Now, apart from the major scale, let's go through some sort of basic knowledge about your guitar that's going to help you to memorizing the notes. Let's begin by getting familiar with the circle of fourths, which is also known as the circle of fifths, depending on how you read this diagram. So as you can see around this circle are all 12 chromatic notes shown in a specific order, and each note represents a major key. If you read the diagram clockwise, you're reading the circle of fifths. So you should notice the distance between C and G is a fifth, because we've obviously got C, D, E, F, and G. Another example here could be D to A. So in the D major scale, we would have D, E, F sharp, G, A, which is your fifth. And if you didn't know that, if you don't know the D major scale, that's okay. Grab your guitar, use the shape that you hopefully already know. Find D. If you don't know how to find D already, you should be able to do it at least slowly by counting along from the A strings. So A, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. And we play the shape. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that fifth you should recognize is an A. It's an octave up from. You should be able to figure that out slowly with the understanding that you hopefully already have, but if you don't, if that really doesn't make sense to you, then don't worry too much. Just take my word for it that these notes are a fifth apart. Now, more importantly than fifths are fourths. So if we read the diagram in an anti-clockwise direction, you'll be reading in fourths. So for example, C to F is a fourth apart. C, D, E, F. And just one more example, let's try E flat to A flat. So we would have E flat, F, G, and then A flat. That's the E flat major scale, and those two notes are a fourth apart. So again, I want you to make this practical. Grab your guitar and play the same shape that you did earlier, but find fourths. So in the key of C, you should find 1, 2, 3, 4. This number 4 should be F. Now the point here is wherever you play that shape, a fourth is always going to be directly below the root. And that's because a guitar is tuned in fourths. Every string is a fourth apart, with the exception of one, and that is the B string. The distance between G and B is a third apart. So it's very important that you remember this for the method that I'm going to share with you very shortly. Okay, so the moment you've been waiting for, how is this knowledge going to help you memorize the notes on the guitar? Let's crack on with that now. So to make it super easy for you, we're going to begin by learning all of the natural notes. So no sharps, no flats, just the straight up natural A, B, C, D, E, F, G notes across the whole guitar. Looking back at the circle of fourths, we can see that the first natural note in the sequence is B, and then it goes E, A, D, G, C, F. It's very important that you remember this order of notes. It's quite easy. You can separate it into two kind of words if you like, or it's not really a word. The first one is, you got bead and then G, C, F. Remember that? It's very, very important. Bead, G, C, F. This series of notes is going to repeat over and over in that order, and we're going to use this vertically across the neck. Now there's one more thing I want to share with you before we can apply this method to memorizing the notes on the guitar, and that is 2 rules. Number 1, as we mentioned in the previous section, when you cross over the B string, you're going to add 1 fret before continuing the pattern. Number 2, when you reach the end of the pattern, so bead, G, C, F, once you hit F, before continuing the pattern again on B, you're also going to need to add another fret. Let's now begin to make this practical by adding these notes to the guitar neck that you can see on screen. So starting off with the very first note, which is an E, and that's the second note of the pattern, B, G, C, F. Following that order, we obviously have vertically E, A, D, G, and then remember the rule, when we cross the B string, we need to add one fret. So following that pattern, we then have C, F, and then obviously that thin string, that E string, is going to be the same as the other E string. So we can also add that one there. Now moving on from this, we finished with F on the top string. Now remember the second rule, we're going to have to go up a fret to continue the pattern on. So we go up a fret, add B, going on, E, A, D. Remember you have to go up a fret for the B string, then G, and then repeat that G on the E string, the other E string, and then continue with the last two notes of the pattern, C and F. And then we've reached F, so we need to go up a fret again, starting the pattern again, B, E, A, copy the A over, and then D, G, C, F. So hopefully you can follow along so far and see where I'm going with this. Just take those two rules into consideration, and this should be very easy to annotate yourself. On the screen now, you can see I've annotated as far as I can go up until the 12th fret there before reaching the octave of the first note that we started on, which was of course the E. One thing I want to bring your attention to is the distance between this F and this B. Now remember, the distance there is plus 2 frets because we've got plus 1 because we're crossing the B string, and plus another 1 because we've finished the pattern on the F and we're going to restart on the B. And as you should already know, from the 12th fret onwards, the notes are exactly the same, so I can fill in the gaps again, and you can see the faded notes there are just an octave up from the beginning of the neck. And there you have it, that's what's known as the bead method. You should now be able to find the notes on the guitar both horizontally and vertically, obviously slowly at this stage. But as I said at the beginning, if you put this into practice 5 to 10 minutes a day, you should have this in no time at all. Now after about a month, you should be beginning to get pretty quick at finding your natural notes across the neck, and you should be able to recall them relatively quickly. But you may be thinking, well, what about the flats and the sharps and the notes in between? And that's the easy part, because to get to those notes, all you have to do is go up or down one fret from one of the natural notes. So if I want to find an A flat, well, on the top string here, we know where A is. We just got to go down one fret for the flat. If I want to find F sharp, then if we're confident that this is an F, then all we need to do is go up one fret. And if you're not so confident that that's an F, then remember, just go down the pattern, A, D, G, C, F. Took me like 5 seconds, and then up a fret, there's your F sharp. Once you start to get relatively familiar with this after maybe 1 or 2 weeks, then try and make it practical by not only going through the sequence bead, G, C, F, but also grab your guitar and maybe run through the cage system or run through your C major scale and try and say those notes out loud as you go through the scale. And with the cage patterns, maybe you could play the chord and just try your best to sort of recite the notes as quickly as you can. It's always important to try and make things as practical and fun as possible. Speaking of which, you should check out my practical guitar theory course, which is linked in the description below if you're interested in learning more about guitar theory. So there we go, that's the end of the lesson. I hope you managed to follow along. If you'd like to download the transcript for this lesson, then check out my Patreon page, which is linked in the description below. And by downloading that, it's not only going to help you, but it's also going to help me to provide more content like this. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know what your thoughts were in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.